showtime.
It's showtime. And here we go.
Welcome into another episode of the Movie Geek Podcast. My name is George T, and as always, I've got the weekend's box office and what is to come this weekend, plus my review of the movie Ash, a pretty decent sci-fi. It does get a little mixed up at the end, but we'll go through all of that very shortly as we bring you last weekend's box office. So we all know that Snow White was definitely a bomb. It definitely tumbled after last weekend. It tumbled to second, making $14.3 million. But number one was Jason Statham's Working Man at 15.5. So that just goes to show you that, again, controversy will kill anything that may actually be good. Who knows? I don't think so, though, 'cause it was very critically panned badly. So, it is what it is. A surprising number three, The Chosen: Last Supper Part 1, 11.7. Didn't even know this movie was opening. It was not on the preview list for last week. So, not sure where this movie snuck in, but it was number three. Disappointing for 4 and 5. They opened this past weekend. The Woman in the Yard at 9.3, and Death of a Unicorn 5.7. So, I think probably maybe because R-rated. I don't know. Both of these movies looked pretty decent, and I know I definitely am going to get to see Death of a Unicorn, hopefully, this weekend, because there's not much out there that I want to see, although I do have a few recommendations for this weekend. Last week's number two, and actually the last 2 weeks is number two, Black Bag, dropped all the way to 8th at 2.1 million. And then the movie I'm going to talk about today in this episode, Ash, has broken the 1 million barrier. Its budget was $500,000, so yay for that. Low budget, movie that was panned very well at South by Southwest, and I'll give you my review at the end. So we have some movies opening this weekend. 2 headliners. A movie called The Friend with Naomi Watts and Bill Murray and Carla Giano. This is about Iris, who is played by Naomi Watts. She's a writer and has basically isolated herself for a long time until her life is turned upside down by a huge dog that was gifted to her by one of her best friends. And, chaos ensues as she has creative and practical and existential problems. So, seems like a funny movie. Anytime you get Bill Murray and Naomi Watts, it's going to be a pretty decent film. Hopefully it does pretty well. And then obviously the bigger one, Minecraft, is coming out. It stars Jason Momoa, Jack Black, Emma Myers, and Jennifer Coolidge. Based on a video game. Minecraft people, when this first got announced and the trailer was dropped, were absolutely up in arms about it because it just looked trashy. The previews and reviews haven't done so well. I mean, I haven't read any of them, but just reading from fan sites and so on, it may not be that good. It still may make a lot of money because it's Minecraft. There are kids many thousands of kids probably still playing it. Even maybe adults are playing it. So will they go see it though? Maybe, maybe not. So maybe that will be number one next weekend. I wouldn't be surprised, to be honest. I wouldn't be surprised. But those are your two big ones for the weekend. So there are some other movies coming out. Eric LaRoe is coming out. This stars Alexander Skarsgård, Judy Greer, and Houston Fry Harrison as Eric. And so this is about parents trying to get away from the atrocities that Eric perpetrated. So he has done some horrible stuff, and now they are trying to isolate themselves into a religious congregation. Sounds pretty decent. We'll see how it does. And then we've got this one is kind of a weird movie, but Hell of a Summer. This stars Finn Wolfhard and Billy Berg. So these two wrote and directed this film. It is obviously what you think it is. It is a teen horror comedy. Think Friday the 13th. Think Cabin in the Woods kind of thing. But it's really campy. So this stars also Fred Hickenberg as their camp counselor. He's like 25 years old, but he's been going to the camp forever as a camper and now as a counselor. And it's just a wild and crazy campy horror film. So that might actually be decent. Another one, Freaky Tales. All right, so this is such a weird premise for this movie. And I was making a list of April movies to my top 5 April movies. All right. And this was one that I was actually thinking about putting in at number 5. Like I had like 5 films vying for that 5th spot. It is such a crazy premise. So you have Angus Creed plays Travis. You have Pedro Pascal as Clint. Tom Hanks is in this movie playing a video store manager. You've got Too Short. He's a rapper. He's playing the cop. Jay Willis playing Sleepy Floyd. And then I guess a rapper named Normina plays in this film. So the premise of this film is an NBA star has this weird tale that everybody is talking about. So this takes place in the 1980s, and so Sleepy Floyd's house was getting robbed, but it's so weird that it's kind of done in a VHS type kind of campy type angle. So Sleepy Floyd's home was being robbed, and cops were telling the story of this wild stuff that happened, that Sleepy Floyd was killing people with ninja swords and stuff like that. It is such a weird story. They say it's unmatched as far as a tall tale is concerned. I don't know. I like Pedro Pascal, Tom Hanks. Definitely, probably something I will say at some point. maybe I might see it this weekend. Who knows? But Freaky Tales is another one. Let's see. Okay, so this movie is one that I wanted to bring up. So there's some other films here. William Tell, the story of William Tell. We all kind of know that he was the guy who shot an apple off a head of his actual son. That was it was always, oh, he shot an apple off a kid's head. Well, that was his son. We all know that he was the man who was named the father of Swiss Confederacy. He stood up to the Austrian Empire and lived to tell about it. So that looks pretty decent. Another movie that's really interesting and will be in limited release will be Psychotherapy. Okay, Steve Buscemi, John Gurgoro, and Britt Lower. So this movie is about a psycho killer. So he, played by Steve Buscemi, is a retired serial killer who helps a young writer or a consultant for a writer who is writing about murder mysteries. And it's kind of weird and deep, but I can see Steve Buscemi playing that type of role. I think it looks pretty decent from the previews. So it might be, again, it might be limited release, so it might be out on video demand probably faster, but it looks pretty decent. And finally, this movie I'm kind of curious about because called The Luckiest Man in America. Okay, so Paul Walter Hauser plays Michael Larson. Walter Goggins plays Peter Tamarkin. Those are the two main characters in this film. Obviously, if you don't know the story of this, and you probably don't, so I'm going to give you a little bit of history on this. This was about the Press Your Luck scandal, and it changed game shows forever after this. So 1984, I was 8 years old, so I'm dating myself here. And I used to love Press Your Luck. I always wanted to go on that show. I always found myself fascinated by game shows, and I said to myself, oh, I'd love to be on a game show someday. Great. Press Your Luck was one of them because the whammy was so cool, but again, you're 8 years old, and that kind of gets you. He also had Price is Right, Classic Concentration, Wheel of Fortune, the list goes on and on. But Price is Right was so much fun. So CBS, produced this, and Peter Tamarkin was an amazing host for the show. He was funny and very cordial. And so this guy, Michael Hauser, goes on to Michael Larson, I'm sorry, goes on to the show. He is a ice cream driver, ice cream truck driver. He's a very lonely guy. He has a girlfriend, but he literally watches game shows all the time. He even went as far as putting, several TVs in his house in one room and just sat and watched over and over and over. Watched VHS tapes. Okay, so for you younger people, this was what we used to record stuff on, as we used to say, taped these stuff. So you would put in the VCR and you would push record. You couldn't some of them you couldn't pre-program, and then eventually you could. You couldn't re-record over something unless you pulled it, unless you really want to, but then the quality, whatever. So the um, so the execs hear his story, and they're like, "Oh, well, let's get him on TV." He had been dreaming about playing uh, game shows for so long, and he finally got his chance. And he made a mockery of the Press Your Luck game and CBS. So he goes on the show. He struggles a little bit. Now he had been trying to put on the premise of him being so enthusiastic because he noticed that most of the contestants on there were so enthusiastic, and he wasn't kind of that way. So he tried to temper himself into this character. When uh, when he went to play the big board, as they used to call it, the first spin of the wheel, the board, he hits the whammy, and of course he doesn't have any money at the time, so it's not the worst thing in the world, but he has one whammy. And he finishes the first round. He's in decent shape. He's last, but he's in decent shape. Like he's starting to kind of quiet himself down, and maybe the nerves were getting to him. That maybe his pattern thing wasn't right. So second round, he only gets 7 spins. Now, when you're trailing in 7 spins in this kind of game, you really don't get you really don't get a chance to win that often. So him watching hours and hours and hours of Press Your Luck pays off. He was so locked in because he was able to notice a pattern. He winds up winning the highest amount of money in history at $110,000 that day. Normally for returning champions, they don't even get that close. A lot of times you'd have to win probably 7 or 8 days in a row, because Press Your Luck, when you got to 20,000, like 15, 20,000, you were going to hit the whammy because it became very, very difficult. He figured it out, and the execs did not like that, and so on. So this, I don't want to spoil the rest of the film, but I probably will do a review on it when I see it. But it looks amazing. There is documentaries on this on the Game Show Network. You can probably find it anywhere, probably on YouTube already. But this guy basically changed the way game shows operated after he figured it out. And they didn't want anybody else figuring out how to beat their game. But Michael Larson did, and we salute him. So that is the weekend box office for this weekend. So again, there's a lot of films out there. There's a lot of films coming in. All right, so let us take a look at a movie that I was looking very forward to, and that is the movie Ash. It's sci-fi. Think of the game Dead Space. Think of the movies Pandorum, Event Horizon, and Prometheus. And I will tie all these in as we go along. So, 2 main stars. Eliza Gonzalez plays Rhea. She was in Ambulance and Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare. And Aaron Paul, known for he played Brian. He played in Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. and a bunch of other things. These two are actually friends um, off the movie set, and in a lot of the interviews, they were really happy to work together on this film. So you have those two. You have uh, Aikio Walls played Adhar. You had um, Bueller Coyle played Kevin. Kate Elliott played um, Clark. And the director of the film, Flying Lotus, plays um, plays Davis. We don't see him much in the film, um, but so this looked really really good. So we have Rhea waking up, but we get this first kind of weird visuals of death and blood and just psychedelic type stuff going on. Rhea wakes up in her room alone, flickering lights, woken to the sound of anomaly detected, a computer voice. And so you're thinking, oh, all right, we're going to get to the good stuff already. She's just waking up. Something terrible has happened. And, we're going to get some stuff right off the bat. Rhea's kind of looking around the room, doesn't exactly know where she is. Stumbles out into the hallway as she hears it again. Anomaly detected. And so now she starts to look around, and she's stumbling around because she just doesn't have a clue, where she is, who she is. And notices blood smears all over the walls, blood on the floor, and she runs into a body that has been stabbed to death against the wall, and blood everywhere. And the computer says, anomaly detected again. So, all right, she moves on. She goes into the med lab. She finds another person on the floor. He is dead. His face was all messed up and blood everywhere. All right. She still doesn't really know what's going on. And she continues to walk around and sees, the damage from whatever happened. Eventually, she gets to the airlock, goes outside, kind of looks around to kind of see where she is. So they're on a space station, or set up a camp on this planet's surface. The weird thing is the sky is all psychedelic. It's got a big portal-looking thing, weird flashing lights, and it just looks like a desolate planet. And as she's walking around, she sees another dead body on the ground with the face mask exploded. And she still doesn't have any idea. She continues to walk until she sees fog, and she thinks she sees something. So she starts to wave. It waves back. And it's basically mimicking her. And she realizes, oh, this isn't a person. Whatever's out there is basically mocking me, and I don't know what it is, so I'm going to have to head back to the confines of the spaceport. So as she's doing that, ash starts to fall, and it starts getting into her lungs, and she needs to get into an oxygen area immediately. So she decompresses the cabin of this place, and she winds up, being okay. So now she's, again, still trying to figure out what is going on, and she's having all these weird visions of what could have happened, dead people, and it's it's weird. She just doesn't really know what's going on. And finally, there's a knock at the door, the cabin door that she had airlocked tight. It is Brian. He's outside, wants to get in to find out what's happened to them. He had lost communication as he's yelling through, and she lets him in. And he's like, "What the hell happened here? I lost communication with you guys." Because he was up in the actual space station itself, and they were tracking the progress of the team, and they obviously lost contact. So there's also that aliens, uh, background there too, where they lost communication with LB-426, and they had to go out there to help him. So he comes down, and she's like, "I don't even know who I am. I really don't know what happened here. They're all dead." And he's like, "Wait, who's all dead? The crew's all dead?" And then they start kind of walking around and finding out, yeah, okay, they're all dead. The only one they can't find is Clark. And he's like, "Well, could Clark be the one that killed them?" And she's like, "I don't know, because I don't know where she is. I don't know what happened to her. I don't even know what happened to me." And she starts taking these like little patches that were like pain pills, um, like to just calm herself down. And as she takes these, she starts to see more and more of her visions. There's some background story with the five of them. They were wanted to be the first ones to um, find the right civilization for the humans, because again, Earth was uh, being destroyed, and humans needed a place to survive, and this planet seemed to be the way to go. And so um, they are having a great time there. They're going to try to report back until they find some unusual um, spirals in the ground in the mountains. So they go out and explore, and they find out that something is terraforming the planet already, because they weren't there to terraform. They were only there to inspect and observe and bring back findings. So one of the crew members decides to find out how deep the spirals go down into the mountains. He throws a rock down there, and then after it hits the ground, or maybe it doesn't even hit the ground, we don't even know, all of a sudden it starts lighting up green, and it's flashing all the way up, all the way up, all the way up. And then finally, the rock flings itself forward and knocks out, or knocks the head off of Davis in this case. And now they start scurrying and running back to the habitat, because, whoa, what the hell just happened? What is going on here? So again, those kind of things where she had, some more visions of death. Her head here was choking her out, and she had to fend off him. Kevin also trying to choke her, and so on, and it was just weird. And then Clark was doing the same thing. So as they are looking around some more, Brian makes mention that they have about 6 hours to get into the rover to get off the planet. So Rand needed to find out what was going on, and fast. Whether she was the one who murdered them all, or something else murdered her crew. So then there's a hull breach. So now you're thinking, okay, maybe this anomaly finally has shown itself, and everything's going to be all crazy and stuff. they wind up going to where the hull breach is, and then Rhea sees an arm trying to reach through. She attacks it, and it disappears, and then she seals up the hull. So all that's going on. But as things are going on, she starts to remember more and more. So Brian keeps giving her more of this medicine. And finally, she has clearer visions. And she remembers that there was a parasitic organism inside the station. And so she extracts a little bit of it. So again, think Prometheus at this point. So she tries to examine it. It breaks free from its little container that she put it in and attaches itself to the crew. If you remember Prometheus, it made, when they first get in contact with the alien species, the guy was presumed dead, but winds up, being this ultra hostile and very strong individual, and they had to burn him outside the thing. So kind of exact the same way, the parasite attaches itself to Adhi, and he starts to go after Kevin and Rhea. And then we get this kind of POV of Rhea trying to fight off Adhi as she's stabbing him with whatever she could find, which was basically scissors, and pretty much bludgeons his head in. They think he's dead. He pops back up. Kevin finally gets to him, and then the parasite finds its way into Kevin, who then goes after Rhea. Kevin and Rhea had some kind of relationship, so this is going to get very difficult for her. Finally, she lures Kevin in. Kevin fights it a little bit, the whole parasite thing, but she has to kill him. Parasite winds up in Rhea. And this is where this gets very weird and trippy. So we see the parasite dig its way into her brain, and we see an eye. And it starts talking about the human race needs to be annihilated or shown its own annihilation. You're going to be the smartest person in the human race, and you're going to help us tell your race to leave this planet. This is our planet. And some other things. And it got very, very weird for me, because again, it's had such a good start, and we're trying to piece it back together, and then come to find out that most of this was all in her brain to begin with, because as she starts to really unravel it, she also had killed Brian. So Brian was all in her imagination, or was it? Or was it the parasite being, giving her those, familiar faces so that she would feel comfortable opening up to them? So it just got weird because, again, Brian was dead. She used a medical little kit, and then it could tell them the time and cause of death. She also finds Clark, who was killed by drowning. There's a flashback of how she was drowned, and that was because Rhea wrapped a shower hose around her and then filled her mask with the water, and that would explain the mask being exploded, and Clark was outside the ship. So again, it gets very complex, because then either another dream sequence or real or whatever, she has this little cut over her eye through most of the film, and then sometimes she doesn't. This time she does, and the parasite is in there, and she takes the little medical kit, and then this arm thing with a bunch of different medical devices start to dig into her wound. Again, no anesthesia, no meds of any kind, unlike in Prometheus, where Shoth was impregnated by the alien that David had given her from that droplet, and where she had to do her own C-section. Although in that regard, she cut herself open with the thing, stapled herself shut, and used a multitude of pain-killing meds to try to help her run as fast as she could. Very far-fetched. But, again, we're a sci-fi. But this one, she does not. And the one thing that what stood out to me was she did not bleed. And, she's screaming and so on, and then she dies. Or doesn't. Or she does or doesn't. Then all of a sudden she comes back to life, maybe because the parasite brought her back, or because it was not real. So again, it's just all this psychological thing. Was it a dream? Was it real? Or was it made up by this parasite? Eventually, she finds the parasite lurking around and burns it to death, and then figures out how to get out of the port and gets onto the ship, onto the rover, headed back to the spaceship. So here I was thinking that it was going to have some kind of a Dead Space ending where we saw Isaac disappearing off the planet, away from the Ishimura, and trying to get back into a shipping lane to escape to a space station nearby. And then Nicole comes out, and that's the end. So I was thinking maybe the parasite had attached itself to the ship and was going to surprise. So that, we think, is how it ends. There is a mid-credit scene that shows that there is something wrong on the spaceship, on the space station, and we're going to end it there. So I think it's obviously setting up for a sequel, which I would not be opposed to. Now, again, if you're a sci-fi lover, this is definitely probably one up there for you. So I would give it a thumbs up on that regard. If you're not, and you're kind of just looking for casual sci-fi, then I would say probably give it an even, which would be like a 3 out of 5 in the scale. Again, it was well done. It got away from it with the whole parasite thing, trying to be the overlord kind of thing. It was very trippy, so it didn't work at times. But I think overall it was good for, again, a $500,000 budget, and it's made over $1 million. So hats off to Flying Lotus and the cast of this movie, and well done on that. So, all right. So that is it for this episode of The Movie Geek. I hope you enjoyed it. Got plenty more stuff coming out very soon, and I'll see you all at the movie.
You like that, baby? Let him know where I came from, yeah!
See you next time. Bye.
Waiting for you. Goodbye. Goodbye. Goodbye.
Hasta la vista, baby.
That's all, folks.